Hi-ho YouTube, Major Cord here, and today I'm going to take a look at one of those knives that kind of flies under the radar here on the YouTube knife community, and that's the L-04. Now this is a Chinese-produced knife along the lines of the SanRenMu or Ganzo series of knives produced by the Enlon or B Company. And I came into possession of this knife through Sir Joben's store, and many of you are probably familiar with him here on YouTube. He runs an online store and also an eBay site that sells a lot of these very fine Chinese-produced knives. And he was having kind of like a factory second sale, and I got this and also a SanRenMu 710 for quite a good deal. And I have yet to really figure out what's wrong with this knife, other than a little bit of blade play. But this knife is quite an interesting little blade. As you can see, and I'll just start off with that, there's a very interesting pattern on the micarta handle, which I think is quite beautiful. I don't think the camera is doing it nearly enough justice, but it's a very deep green that kind of sort of shimmers in the light, and it's just quite beautiful. There we go. That's really showing it off. I kind of look at it, the knife itself, as more of a working knife, but just this pattern really makes it very beautiful and almost dressy. So it can kind of flex into both roles. But the knife itself, I've used it more as a worker knife, a beater knife, just because I have so many other knives for dress casual and you know, regular EDC. And I got this for such a sweet deal that really I don't really care if it gets destroyed. But that is a nice sweet pattern there. So this knife, you have about a 3 1/4 inch blade, HCR13 MOV blade steel, as is common with most of these Chinese-produced knives. And HCR13, I love it. It takes a very keen edge and holds it within the realm of what I'm satisfied with. It came sharp, and I resharpened it just with one of my preferred edges. So I've never had a problem keeping this sharp or resharpening it. This knife is full flat ground, so if you prefer that, then you know it's going to be a good knife for you. It is a liner lock, and the lock is very thick, which leads me to believe that this is a very good candidate for a beater knife. A lot of these knives you see, they have a very thin liner lock, but this is just a very sturdy, stout knife. There's no skeletonizing in the handle, which means this knife does weigh about 4 ounces, at least in comparison to some other blades I have. I don't own a scale, so it's a guess, but I'm going to guess around 4 ounces. But combined with the lockup and just how sturdy this knife feels, I have no problem trusting it to some harder tasks. Deployment is good using either the thumb stud or the flipper here. I will say that it doesn't really deploy with just a flip of the flipper. Flick of the flipper. You do kind of need some wrist flick in there, but it is a smooth action. And using the thumb stud, assuming you're not constrained by a camera, it deploys very stoutly. So it's a very solidly built knife. I will say, and this is one of the reasons why it was a factory second, at least from Joben's store, there is a bit of side-to-side blade play on this model, but really for, I think I paid $7 on, you know, a knife like this, I can accept a little bit of side-to-side blade play. Up and down, this thing is rock solid. And part of that, I think, may have to do with the fact that this knife has an internal blade stop instead of one mounted behind the blade here. So that might have something to do with that teeny bit of blade play. Personally, though, I don't care. I've gotten the pivot, which is a, I believe, T6 Torx head there, to a point where it's both decently smooth and tight. So I'm not going to fiddle with that too much more. Your pocket clip is one position only, but it is tip up. So for those of you that like tip up carry, you're set, but you cannot move it to either the left side or tip down carry. It is a nice pocket clip. It's strong, and it carries, I'm not going to say very deep, but deep enough that you're not going to lose this. so there's enough sticking out of your pocket to grab the knife, and it's not going to conceal or anything, but you're definitely not going to have this knife fly out of your pocket. And since this is smooth micarta, you're not going to have any intense pocket wear. Ergonomically, this knife is very comfortable in the hand. Cutting cardboard with it and such, I didn't really notice any hot spots. I feared originally that this pocket clip, since it kind of stuck out here and again down here, would really create some hot spots in the swell of my palm, but I didn't really notice it. One thing I will say, and this is just more of a minor quirk than anything I'm going to really complain about, is that this jimping here on the spine of the knife is totally misplaced for anywhere a human thumb would be. Unless you're going to hold the knife all the way back here, in which case then it's in a good spot, you're totally going to miss the jimping. And now, I'm not a total big stickler for jimping, so I don't really care whether there's jimping here or not. I mean, you're not losing this knife. You have a choil here formed by the flipper, and there's a teeny bit of jimping on the lock bar here itself, so you're locked in. I mean, you're not going anywhere, and I've never had my thumb slip off the top of a knife anyway, because I don't generally cut like this. But, I mean, you're not going anywhere, but the jimping here seems very useless to me just because nothing rests on it. At least with my hand. Nothing touches it. So it's just a little bit of an oddity beyond anything else. But otherwise, ergonomically speaking, this knife is pretty darn well thought out. I mean, the thumb studs are well designed for those that plan on using them. You know, they bite your thumb just right, your thumb doesn't slip off of them. I will say, though, that there isn't a ton of room to access them. You know, there's no access area in the handle, so you may just need to stick your nail in there and flick it. But other than that, this is really a knife that's designed to be actuated by the index finger flipper up here. So that's not too big of an issue for me. But yeah, this knife is one that I was not hesitant to buy, really, because it was so cheap, but it wasn't one I was sure I was going to like. And I have to say that, having used it, it's not one that I've carried extensively just because there are so many other knives in my collection. I have no problem giving this, you know, an A+. If you see this knife, if you happen to see it discounted somewhere, or even if you want to buy it brand new, do so. I mean, I think even new, this knife retails for under $20, probably in the $14 to $15 range. And it's certainly worth picking up. It's a beautiful knife, and whether you decide to use it as a dress knife or, you know, just a beater knife, because quite frankly it's very replaceable, I think it's worth picking up. These Chinese knives, you know, the B, the Enlan series, the Ganzo, the SanRenMu, they're very good knives. I haven't really heard many complaints, and the few that I own are basically flawless. So, you know, they're cheap, they're well made, and they're certainly worth looking into. And this L-04 is definitely worth adding to your collection. So thank you very much for watching. Take care.